I ain't feel like taking it off. Like, normally I would take it off, but I find the little head wrap looking cute, man. There we go.
We get enough, we get enough, we get enough to go. Get off. We get enough to go. Get off. We get enough to go. We get enough to go. Foot in this direction, foot in this direction, foot in this.
Hi folks, how y'all doing? Nice to be here. It's been a week since a really lovely live, that live with those four ladies where we sit down here for 2 hours. 2 hours and had a really great conversation. This evening is the first time in a long time that is just me sitting down here talking to all you, talking the things. Now, normally I would unwrap my hair because I just wrap it to kind of manners it a little bit. But I find the wrap looking cute, so I keep in the head wrap maybe for the rest of the live. Maybe I might unwrap it at some point in time during the live, you know. So good evening to everybody. And the purpose of the song that I started off with, which would have been Marshall Montano's Road March contender for 2013, Float, and I think he may have won with that song in 2013, is for us to understand that you can't go through life just toting feelings, you know, and keeping all of that negative energy inside of you and burdening yourself and them kind of things, so, right? And I find these days, you know, I have to come off social media, I have to take several breaks throughout the day because people just toting feelings for all kinds of silly reasons. And I think too, with what went on with vaccination this week, while we started feeling hopeful, I forget to put on the backlights. Tech guy is about to kill me. While we started feeling hopeful with what went on with the rollout this week, there was a bit of, and I just want people to grasp this. We didn't get certain things right. We had to go back to the drawing board and fix it. But there is a lot that we need to be grateful for and about, and we're going and talk about some of those things right about now. So you'll see those figures there, and I think those figures are something for us to applaud, because to reach 150,000 persons with the first vaccine, having the first set of vaccines, I think that's a great I think that's a good rate. Brian Seeley, no, at this rate we will not get to the target by 2024. And I feel perhaps if you were looking at the figures over the last couple of days, you'd realize that just day before yesterday we were at 140,000 persons. And today we are now at 150,000 persons. So that means that there's been a significant amount of vaccination taking place, despite what would have happened on Wednesday and Thursday. But we're going to get into talking about what has happened on Wednesday and Thursday, because I feel it's important for us to understand where we went wrong, understand how the system does work here, because we like to think that it's just the Minister of Health and the CMO, to have plenty other persons involved, and then talk about how those other persons involved need to get off their ass, because it's public servants who are part and parcel of this entire healthcare system, and they're public servants who are working on the administrative end of things. And when you're working on the administrative end of things, you need to put certain things in place because you are dealing up with lives and livelihoods, right? Lives and livelihoods. And we need to bear that in mind, that this vaccination rollout is not something that is only going to be impacting on people's health. It's also going to be impacting on the economy as well. The more persons that get vaccinated, the faster we get vaccinated, the faster we are in a position to get back to our regular lives. But I want to jump the gun. I have plenty that I want to discuss, obviously. There's a lot that I want to get into, but I don't want to jump the gun. Vaccines is the last thing I'm going to be talking about this evening. The first thing I'm going to be talking about is what went on in the Parliament Monday evening. So I don't know how many of you paid attention to the fact that this week would have been the midterm review of the budget. You all know our budget is read usually around September, October, all right? And it will be the budget for the, the upcoming fiscal year. And then 6 months down the line, there tends to be a normally April or early May, there's a midterm review of the budget. But because of what has been going on with the pandemic, there was not a midterm review of the budget in April, May. So it happened in June. And it would have happened on Wednesday. So the Minister of Finance would have he would have led that debate. But Monday was the Standing Finance Committee. What was the Standing Finance Committee meeting to do? The Standing Finance Committee was meeting to basically approve more spending in certain areas. So agriculture, for instance, health, and certainly the TTPS, there was more funding given in those areas. So there would have been funding that would have been approved at the budget, at the level of the budget last year, and they have increased the amount of funding for those areas at the midterm review of the budget. So midterm start, right? Well, let me not say midterm start. Standing Finance Committee start. And it was Monday that the Standing Finance Committee started. And what you need to remember is this. We are in a state of emergency. We have a curfew. Once you have a Standing Finance Committee out, it means that key staff from all of the ministries have to be out and available to answer questions. Now, the SFC didn't happen in the Parliament. It happened as a Zoom meeting, right? So, but you had the Parliament. Of course, the Parliament was running the thing. So there was staff at the Parliament and there was staff at the various ministries there to provide their ministers, their line ministers, with answers to questions that were there, that would have been posed by the committee. And the United National Congress began to filibuster. You all know what filibuster is, right? When you start to I guess, to use a lot of speaking and to use a lot of questioning to just kind of keep something going for as long as you could keep the thing going for. So the UNC, the opposition, started to repeat questions, like ask the same thing over and over again, ask the same thing in different ways, knowing that it would be the same response they're getting. And that began to drag out the process. And then this happened. The speaker, because she is responsible for what happens in the sitting of the House, she decided to take matters in hand. And this is how she took matters in hand.
Madam Chair, my hand was
has been varied by an increase in the sum of $57,310,000.
Again, they keep taking the mic.
Madam Chair,
Head 78, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services.
But mics were on, and I don't understand how nobody will hear.
Madam Chair, my hand was up.
I'm going to pause it there for you to look at, Ravi Ratiram face. If that has worked for you. It don't work for me at all. If at any point in time I want to be entirely turned off, I just had to watch Ravi Ratiram face. So, the MPs for the opposition would have been all in the comfort of their home or in their MP's office, right? The clerk of the parliamentary staff would have been out in Parliament because they had to set things up so that this thing would be able to broadcast. Ministry staff and ministers, some of the ministers might have been at their homes, some of the ministers might have been in their ministries itself, and ministry staff was out at the various ministries, support staff, to assist with answering questions. And what you need to remember and keep in mind is this. Once the Speaker of the House is speaking, it means that she's on her legs. So nobody else is allowed to speak when she is speaking. So for them to decide that they're going to speak while she is speaking and to attempt to speak over her is to breach a standing order. And she was attempting to speak to allow the process to move along more efficiently. Let me let all you listen to a little bit more of the madness that went on.
Will now invite the Minister.
This is very unfair, man. It doesn't make sense.
Minister.
This is
You can't get an answer from the minister. It doesn't make
This is unacceptable.
In the interest of time, I
This
will
is
have
totally wrong, Madam Chair.
my opening.
The speaker on her legs, you know. The speaker is on her legs. Once she is speaking, once her microphone is on, if she has not indicated to you that you are in a position to speak, she is on her legs. She not doing the muting at the mic, you know. She not doing the muting at the mic. It would be Parliament staff, because they understand that the protocol is once the speaker speaking, she is on her legs, other persons are not allowed to speak. So their mics are being muted. And what is going on here? The UNC make sure that they film things from their end and put it out.
Statement and
This is totally
Postponed and started on
Honorable members.
And you notice who are the MPs that's speaking up, right? Dave Tanku, Ravi Ratiram, Saddam Hussein, Khadija Amin. Pay attention. Total toddler syndrome behavior.
57.
That the
We started at 1 p.m. and now members have been shut down.
This is unacceptable.
services.
This
David Bannon.
The people parliament, you know, the speaker on her legs, this madness going on.
unacceptable.
So eventually the speaker gets to the point where she gives ground to,
Unmute your mic.
Sorry about
she
that,
allows
Madam Chair.
Shogunas
Madam
East.
Chair, head 7803 00703. Madam Chair, can the Minister advise what initiatives were undertaken with the original allocation of $330 million?
So it's not that she wasn't allowing them to speak. She was allowing them to speak when they had something, when there was a new line item and a new question to be asked. That is what was going on, because she did not want a situation where persons were asking the same questions over and over again and stretching out the Standing Finance Committee in Parliament, because it's only a certain amount of time people could have been out for. And remember, this thing it went into the evening. People had to get home to their house. Support. I'm not talking about ministers, you know. I'm not talking about MPs, you know. I am talking about public servants, support staff. And this is when there's a point in the meeting where you got the other side of the story.
It hopefully will be
Let's listen to this.
a very brief intervention. Madam Chair, I think it's important for somebody to draw all of the members' attention to the fact that we have support staff in offices right now. We're coming to the close of curfew. I'm getting a number of messages from staff members from different ministries, etc.
So staff from various ministries were sending messages to Minister Young to indicate to him, we are worried and concerned that this meeting going so long, we will not be able to wrap things up, because remember, it's every single line item, right? Every single ministry where they're increasing the amount of money that was budgeted for them for the fiscal year, you are going through every single line item. When they do Standing Finance Committee around the time of the budget, Standing Finance Committee just take a week. A whole week. It takes a week with Imbert sit down in a seat saying, line item please, Madam Speaker, what is the line item? And each person who has a question will be asking and challenging, why you increase this, why you decrease that, why this, that, and the other. Minister Young has to come and bring sense to the thing to point out, here now, staff want to go home, you know. There is a curfew on. It's not a situation where people could just be out after curfew, especially since many of them did not have curfew passes.
Pleading that they don't have curfew passes, etc. Some of the questions, with the greatest of respect, are repetitive. To be grilling the minister for 20 minutes on what is obvious, that a boat have to operate. They have to have crews, they have to have diesel, they have to have insurance paid, they have to have maintenance carried out, etc. You have to pay docking fees, etc. So, Madam Chair, really it is to intervene at this point to make a plea on behalf of the staff that are across the various ministries, including, Madam Chair, as you are very aware, your own parliamentary staff, not that they are making the request, and just to ask people to really stop, with the greatest of respect, asking the repetitive questions and wasting time. Thank you.
Now, why it has always had to come to this? Why does it always have to get to the point where we have to point out that the opposition is being a nuisance? Not necessarily challenging things that we're challenging things on principle, but just challenging things for the sake of challenging things, for the sake of creating an obstacle, for the sake of being a nuisance. Like why? Why is being a nuisance so important to opposition members? Is it there in the contract? Is there as an allowance? There's a nuisance allowance or something? Because I don't get it. Because to me, you could be a nuisance for certain things and you'll get people to be on your side and to like you, right? Because the way in which you're pushing back is in nature the public interest. But when you get to the point where you just pushing back because you could push back, then you're getting on like a real spoiled teenager. That's what you're getting on like let me not say spoiled teenager, like a dysfunctional teenager. So these days, I'm not even sure that the opposition is a political party. The opposition moving like a group, a squad of dysfunctional teenagers. Real dysfunctional teenagers. And I don't know, Kamala is not a good look. It is just not a good look. Plain and simple. Speaking of people who have been acting like dysfunctional teenagers. Where this clip? Oh my word. I didn't download this one? How I managed to download this? Kill me dead, I had downloaded this.
I want to bad talk Tobago for a little bit.
Oh, you hear that? Now I'll put him on screen for you.
Alright, I want to bad talk Tobago for a little bit. What's the deal with Tobago? Like, when we gonna stop, like, pretending they're important? I know you're thinking, oh gosh, but listen, I come in here and I say good night Trinidad, and nobody bat an eye. Nobody say, excuse, what about our sister Isle? Nobody say that.
Because it's not nobody actually in the room with you there. Is a stand-up comedy routine in an empty studio. Because I feel like if you was in a studio with like real life people, they would have stopped you one time and say, this not even funny. Your laugh track kind of dead. Like, what is even going on here? So, folks, this is Kyle Hernandez. Kyle Hernandez is a spoken word poet coming out of Trinidad and not Tobago. Because maybe right now Tobago not even remotely interested in claiming, this guy, right? So, Kyle come, and Kyle apparently is... Kyle has launched his comedic career. I know him as a spoken word poet. I've met and interacted with him. He used to be a student at the University of the West Indies, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, he was a student at the University of the West Indies. I didn't teach him directly, but I remember seeing him around on the campus, and I also remember seeing his photographs when he graduated and stuff, right? So Kyle is here, and Kyle decides that he's going to take a ton in Tobago and Tobagonian backside. Let me let you finish here it.
If you think about our country's name too, Trinidad and Tobago, if you just think about it,
all you know, anybody who does sigh at all and like be disappointed about Tobago, because I mean, like in April, real people was happy to say Tobago, and I know plenty long weekends, Trinis is be real happy to say Tobago. And I know August vacation, the long vacation in July, August, when that gets here, people are real happy to say Tobago, right? So I don't know. I am unaware. I've never heard anybody sigh and sound sour and bitter when they're saying the word Tobago. If anything, Trinidadians this feel like they own Tobago. Trinidadians just move like they're colonizing Tobago. But you know what? Let me not jump ahead of myself because there's a lot that I mean to say and want to say about this.
Better with us. Tobago, not important. And I know you're probably thinking, hey, Kyle, that's real harsh when you're saying that for. But if somebody come up to you and say, you have a Tobago face, wouldn't you be offended?
What the fuck is a Tobago face? My language might get a little bit spicy, but all you know me, all you're accustomed to me by now. And if we're going to be talking about you have a real Tobago face, then what do we get to say about Kyle's face? Like, how do we describe Kyle's face? Is this a Trinidadian face? I don't know. I'm just asking, right?
Yeah. They hate us, Tobagonians. I don't know why. But I
Tobagonians hate Trinidadians. I mean, and you see that particular line there? They hate us, Tobagonians. I don't know why. I'm going to get back to that because to me, that right there, not the other things, that particular line right there, that for me is the crux of the issue. There's a whole story that I need to give you all, but let me let him finish.
I walk up into Cheese's Chicken in Tobago and I say, hello, may I have some napkins? You're from Trinidad? I don't know how Tobago is. So I learned to read at a young age, so it's hard to get the accent if you're literate.
So you see this thing about making jokes to make as if Tobagonians are backward and Tobagonians don't speak English and Tobagonians are undereducated. Whoo! Homeboy on your own, yes?
Everybody relax. Comedy. So, I think they feel like we feel we better than them. Yeah, your beach is nice. We have one secondary school. Like, bro, everybody in Tobago is passing their first choice. But we, like, I know another, a matter of fact, think about their national bird, a cockrico. How low your self-esteem have to be to walk up to a Down syndrome pigeon and be like, that's it, that's the one.
A Down syndrome pigeon. Like, these are the best jokes this young man can come up with. Like, he sat down and he wrote these jokes and he memorized these jokes, and this was the best that he could do. Pick on Tobago.
Write it on. What? So make me sound better, make me said better. I think it worked. I guess everybody saying, Kyle, yo, this real harsh. Oh my God, what you doing?
All right, I need to stop now because I ain't had the belly to do too much more of this, right? There is one other thing I want to show you, and then after I show you it, I will make the comments that I need to make where this young man is concerned. This young man and his piece concerned. I don't know how many of y'all remember this video. Because you see, as a woman with memory for days, right? So when I saw that stand-up routine, and by the way, that routine aired on WESN, that new station that I think Louis Leasing is a part of. I think he's one of the backers, one of the persons behind that station, right? So I looked and I thought to myself, for something like this to air, a bunch of persons, whoever is the program manager, program director, all of those persons would have had to listen to this, listen to part of it at the very least and decide, okay, yeah, this making sense. We're going to air this as programming on our station. So you had a whole bunch of persons, not just Kyle Hernandez, decide this making plenty sense. We're going to put it out there because it's real funny. So I don't know how many of y'all remember this. Maybe many of you don't remember this. So let me tell you what this is. This is an ad that was done during general elections 2020. Let me play a little bit of it.
Now is the time. And if you have decided yet, well, time to make up your mind. Us youths must seize what's in front of you. It's time we understand what's up with the country, how long they abuse and use the vote. Now it's time to jump on a different vote, one that leads us to prosperity. And she's called SSUNC.
Right. Let me stop here. Wasn't it right there? And now let me start to talk. So this young man is a creative, a spoken word poet. He would have been commissioned by the United National Congress last year, as were many other young creatives, to do pieces to appeal to the young voting base, because that's who the United National Congress targeted last year. And they targeted this young base because they wanted younger persons coming out and basically telling youth there is no hope if in the current government. The current government is not progressive. The current government is not going to be doing anything for you. The current government is going to hold you back. And hey, if that's your campaign, that's your campaign. I don't vex with nobody about the campaign, right? People had to do what it is they had to do because you want to win, you want to get back in government, you want to make sure the money you started helping yourself too. 5 years before, you could continue to help yourself to the money and avoid jail time, etc. I get it. Me don't vex about them kind of thing at all, because everybody does recognize everybody's agenda. Good. So Kyle would have done this, and after he did this, he came out afterwards because there was backlash and said that he wasn't thrilled, he wasn't pleased about it, but it was a way to earn money. Him and a number of other creatives, that was their reasoning, that was their response when there was backlash. You all remember the Trinity Triangle videos, right? And the fact that the Trinity Triangle videos were were heavily steeped in racism, heavily steeped in stereotyping persons. Well, this was part of the whole series of Trinity Triangle themed videos that basically talked about the country and talked about a particular ethnic segment of the country in a particular way. Made them sound backward, made them sound lazy, made them sound unprogressive, prone to crime, poverty, all of those things, right? The videos were very much steeped in a narrative of racism and oppression amongst a particular ethnic group. So after the video was done and this was released, he would have come out and he would have said that he wasn't thrilled about it, and he tried to backpedal. But there was backlash just now. I want to go back to the other video. Pull this up. And because I want you all to continue to have the visual, right? Good. Now you see that line about Tobagonians hating Trinidadians? That's the thing that made me pause, because when I saw this, at first I said to myself, maybe it's really just a comedy routine. But you see, I suspicious as hell about plenty thing, right? So I don't ever take anything at face value. So I listened to it. And when he hit that line, I listened to the clip and then I replayed it again. And I hit that line. And I message our partner and I say, the THA Amendment Act, basically the THA bill for self-government, when that up for debate, and they said, oh, that bill's supposed to be tabled for debate soon. Now, I do not believe in coincidences. I am not the sort of person that you will get to believe in coincidences. I feel that this particular routine, and if the routine was grabbed onto in a particular way, because when you go to some pages on social media, he was being heavily defended. This thing was being heavily defended as his right to express himself. And people were defending it and saying, but yeah, that he not lying. That's how Tobagonians are. So I listened to it and I said to myself, the THA Amendment Act is coming up. The THA Amendment Bill, is coming up. It is tabled for debate, where we're going to be discussing autonomy, greater autonomy for Tobago. For Tobago to be in a position to have, more power and be able to do more things for itself. Might this be part of a larger initiative to scuttle support for the bill and to have persons, because it's a real insidious kind of comment to make about Tobagonians hating Trinidadians, because the comment is made in there and it's not made against anything in particular. So now let me step back a couple paces and start to ask you this. What do you think is the point and the purpose of comedy? what do you think is the point and purpose of the oral culture? Because if you're a Calypsonian, we have lots of witty, satirical Calypsonians. If you are a griot, if you are a chantwell, if you are a stand-up comic, your purpose when you come with a topic that you want to treat with satirically is to get your audience to learn something, right? To learn something. What did you learn here when he was finished? What did you learn? You learned that Kyle, as a Trinidadian, thinks that Tobagonians are backward, thinks that Tobagonians are stupid, thinks that Tobagonians are ugly, thinks that the national bird of Tobago is retarded. I didn't even know that that word was allowed, you know, in public presentations like that anymore. I thought we had to stop using the word retarded. All right? And you learn, what was the other thing? You learn that he thinks that Tobagonians aren't very well educated and they hate Trinidadians. Why would anybody decide that that's what they're going to be using as a humor angle? If anything, what you might want to be using is pitching the tension between how a Trinidadian might perceive something versus how a Tobagonian might perceive something to show the difference in cultural approaches between the islands. Full disclosure, I am part Trinidadian, part Tobagonian. My father is Trinidadian, my mother is Tobagonian. And I get very sensitive about people attacking either island. I get sensitive if Tobagonians attacking Trinis, and I get sensitive when Trinis are attacking Tobagonians. Why? Because I think what we need to do at this point in time is understand each other. And I don't know that this comedy routine helped anybody to understand anything about anybody, because he comes across as an arrogant Trinidadian. And that's a stereotype that we have, that we come across as arrogant. Trinidadians come across generally as arrogant towards Tobagonians, as if we feel superior to Tobagonians, as if we feel we are better, more evolved than Tobagonians. We behave as if we think Tobagonians are backward. And then you have Tobagonians thinking that Trinidadians trying to take over the island, trying to deny them resources, and there is this age-old tension between both islands because neither side feels that they can trust the other side. And the irony of the situation is 2 of the 3 persons that run in our country right now, running the various arms of the state right now, are Tobagonians. The Prime Minister is a Tobagonian. The Chief Justice is a Tobagonian. And we might scratch hard enough and find out that the President has some Tobagonian blood or Tobagonian roots. The point that I'm trying to make is, when you're doing comedy, you don't insult the small person. That's not what you do when you're doing comedy. When you're doing comedy, the role of the comic is to take something that is big and self-important and overinflated and bring it down to size, cut it down to size. So if anything, Kyle should have been attempting to cut Trinis down to size for having particular stereotyped ideas about Tobagonians. But he didn't do that. Instead, he fed directly into the stereotypes that we know Trinidadians have about Tobagonians. I saw persons this morning upset and attacking the 2 cents movement. And I want to say this. He is no longer part of the 2 cents movement. He has moved on. He announced it on his page. When I say he announced it, he announced on his page that he has moved on to launching his own comedic career. So this isn't the 2 cents movement. He's not doing this on behalf of the 2 cents movement. This is him launching out into his own independent, individual thing. And what I want to say is, Kyle, if this is your first step, boss man, you start off bad, right? Because 2 cents does make sense. But Kyle on nonsense. And that nonsense have me real tense. Because why to feel better about himself, he had a Tobago low, right? and rock back and dip so in a 630 position that's spreading his ass cheeks and poison and nothing more. Nothing else going on there. You just show your whole ass and you said a lot of poisonous, toxic things about one half of a twin island nation. You start off bad, Kyle. Come again. And you see, at this point, it's hard for me to think that is accidental when I think about what you would have contributed to in the elections of 2020, because you would have chosen to be part of a campaign that was steeped in stereotypes, prejudice, and racism. So this particular stand-up routine, nah. Whatever it is you do next, Kyle, you had to come real good. And the thing is, I think you're a talented fella, but you had to come real good, because this was a huge misstep. A huge misstep. So that was the nonsense. Not 2 cents. The nonsense. That was Kyle Hernandez's comic piece. And I really think that WESN, or whatever is the name of the station, they need to do better. WESN can't be the station that people is go to for their careers to die. Alright? Because the station now start up. And I thought to myself, why would Louis Leasing and his people approve something like that? Like, why? What is I want? Ooh! We're going to talk about Pasta Sauce Guy. You all ready to talk about Pasta Sauce Guy? Let's talk about Pasta Sauce Guy. Let me go here. I have a question to ask all you. Why people, when they start up a live, just get onto the live and then talk about let the live build? Like, what is that about? Because when I start up my lives, people is be there waiting to listen to me. Like norms. So I want a little listen to this. This morning, a very good friend of mine, Storm Clement Superville. So big up to Storm Clement Superville, right? Storm sent me a link. But the thing is this. Winston Ragoo has me blocked on social media, so I can't see things that he does. So when she sent the link to me, I had to go and ask Tech Guy to go and check things. I said, go take a look and download it for me, please. Right? And he downloaded it and he looked at it on my behalf, because when he said to me, he said, you know, Winston Ragoo did a live this morning, you featured in the live, and I was like, oh God, Lord. All right, I didn't really want to listen to it at all. So he listened and he said, okay, I need to let you all hear this. So let me let you all hear this.
See members of parliament and saying that we have good doctors who are...
Actually, you know what? Let me go from the start, because I want to let you hear how this shit on this had to beg people to come on the live.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is your host, Winston Ragoo, here speaking. I'll wait for the live to build.
What is that? What is that? A whole 20 seconds you waiting for the live to build?
And when the live build, I'll explain what it is I have to say.
So why you can't just start explaining the thing one time and then people will show up? Because I don't wait for no live to build. All it is reach. Right now it have 1,300 all here on the live. And by the time this live done, right, and I click end broadcast and I take 2 spin in the kitchen and drink some water, it's about 10,000 people watch the live. So I don't understand this. All this noise, all it is be making upon the people's socials when the day come. Calling my name and all them out whole fucking day like I's all a woman. And all it is had to sit down and wait for live to build. The live is a construction company. Yeah, so you waiting for live to build. Talk the things. Yeah, thing to talk the things.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning. I will wait until the live bill. You see this morning,
Listen, it's a whole century he wait to be able to start to talk, you know. And when he start to talk, is a such a nonsense. So let me go forward a little bit now. So all you could hear the degree of foolishness this man. Because listen, me didn't realize that me giving a little interview to the BBC would have people so hurt. Now I need to buy Bengay and send it down for Winston Ragoo to deal up with all that butt hurt. Because like he bamsi, swollen, fussy hutting.
never told the person on the program that the spike came.
Just no. Let me go back a little bit. Start by 8 minutes somewhere there. I think like half 8.
The station that Trinidad and Tobago got the COVID-19 because the citizens did not do what they should have done, and the citizens were careless when Philip had this whole candlelight vigil. She put it on, and then she even said that the people were gathering in bars and people were not listening. This woman went as far as calling out the UNC members of parliament and saying that we have good doctors who are...
I want Ole to listen to what is he saying about me, right? Because afterwards I'm going to let Ole listen to the actual interview that I gave to the BBC, and Ole could determine where I went wrong.
Citizen, do you know that Rhoda Barrett never said that the borders were open and the P1 virus came from a Venezuelan, and that
our borders open? Our borders open? Because to the best of my knowledge, our borders closed since the 23rd or the 22nd of March 2020. So when I hear this was the first time I know our borders open. So I say I had to talk to to Minister Fitzgerald Hines. And say, well, hey, but Fitzy and tell me the borders open. I as a woman want to be able to stamp my passport hot, and foot it up the road and see my sister and my nephew. So what is going on here?
Create a spike in the COVID-19. Did you know she never told the reporter that the spike is not the regular COVID-19 but the P1 virus?
In all of the press conferences you are listening to thus far, have they said that it is only the Brazilian variant that leading to the spike? Because to the best of my knowledge, that P1 variant is becoming more rampant here, but it is the regular strains of COVID that's also part of the spike. I don't think that is a situation where is one strain that responsible for the increase in infection numbers. Me ain't hear nothing like that at all. So when I watching this, I'm like, but here in the next reality, the borders open is a Venezuelan that caused the spread and is the P1 variant. This is the shit that this man is saying to whoever it is he talking to. This one I need all to understand. That this man get up when the morning come and clearly he don't fix his face. Right? Because it have pleat and gathers and all kind of thing going on there. Jump in his car, switches on his phone, and basically starts to just spew misinformation to his listening public. If I do all of that, all you go cuss me. If I do all of that, all you will cuss me, all you will run up on my wall and cuss me. It have people here just correct me one time. If I add 2 numbers wrong, right? They jump on the live to correct my maths. They jump in my inbox to correct my maths. They just want to be reading me a whole sermon about how I ain't add the number correct, all kind of thing. If I get one word incorrect, if I pronounce a word bad, right? Is a set of pressure I just be getting from all you. Because all you just hold me to a higher standard. And because of that higher standard that you all hold me to, that's why the BBC spoke to me and not to him.
That came from outside of the country. Do you know this one went on an international radio station and shamed the whole of this country and put in the public space in the UK and broadcast around the world on this radio station that Trinidad and Tobago got the COVID-19 because the citizens did not do what they should have done, and the citizens were careless when Philip had this whole candlelight vigil. She put it on, and then she even said that the people were gathering in bars.
Lies. We don't hurt no feelings. We don't hurt no feelings. Let me let Oli listen to what it is I actually said now, right?
made earlier this week, and most other English-speaking islands on the region have managed to keep their COVID death toll really low. So to find out what's behind the spiking cases and deaths in this oil-exploiting state, I caught up with Trinidadian vlogger Rhoda Barath.
This would be our second wave, and it would have come on the heels of having been very good for a fairly decent stretch of time, and then becoming very fatigued, dropping your guard, then things picking up to the point where we are at a little over 600 deaths now, and people stopped practicing mask wearing and social distancing in the way they ought to have been mask wearing and social distancing.
What do you think has contributed to it?
There was a murder that took place late in January. People were very upset about that murder, and people got together to hold vigils, to hold protests, and they were having these nightly protests in different communities, not observing all of the protocols. Then Easter time would have come around, and we would have had it's a long weekend holiday for us. Then people who were holding private parties, we still had a lot of private events taking place. So it would have been a series of events that would have led to super spreading.
All you hear me call anybody name inside there yet? I talked about a series of events that would have led to super spreading. I talked about the murder leading to the vigils. I talked about private events. I talked about people still going to fetes, etc. Let me continue.
In Trinidad, you had in April just over 9,500 cases or so. And yet within the space of a month, by May, it had risen to 23,000. So that's a staggering jump just within the space of a month. So is it that people let their guard down so much?
March is when you started to see the numbers increasing. And that's because pockets of social gathering and poor mask wearing behavior happening in many communities across the country.
Are the health authorities taking any responsibility for perhaps not pushing the message forward as strongly as they should have?
I can't say that the message hasn't been pushed forward, but what we need to grasp is this. We have a situation where some portions of the population behave anti-scientific to some extent. We've had people who have denied the presence of COVID. We've had people say, and I'm talking about persons at the highest levels of government here, saying that sunlight, we're blessed with sunlight and sunlight will kill COVID. We've had senators argue that bars should be left open so that persons can go on, anybody who is in danger of getting COVID can go and drink alcohol to avoid getting COVID. Members of Parliament who have medical degrees argue that the government should be using hydrochloroquine on patients when all of the science is pointing to different things entirely. And all of the science is telling you that this thing is contagious in a particular way. And of course, if you've got people in high places saying things like that, it creates a culture of ignorance where the disease is concerned. It creates a particular sort of mindset, and so you don't have a collective approach to dealing with the pandemic.
And she is the Trinidadian blogger.
Folks, that's the whole interview day. At least that is the clip that the BBC would have played. It's not the entire interview because we would have discussed other things, but those are the parts of the interview that they chose to go with. And what I will say is this. The BBC reached out to me on Wednesday. A journalist messaged me via the news source inbox and said that they were looking for someone to weigh in on the COVID situation in Trinidad and Tobago. That someone had told them about the video blogs that I do. They started looking at a number of the video blogs that I'd done, the interviews that I'd done, and they felt, okay, we can speak to this person. I can't help it that nobody does want to watch Winston Pastor in the car, right? That nobody really want to be taking in Pastor Winston, sit down in the car, talking on our Facebook Live. No, they want information. They want facts, and they want good production value, right? I can't help it that I just step up my game What, you're gonna hate on me because I do anything properly? No. And I didn't lie. There were no lies told inside there. There was a point in the interview, and it did not make it into the public domain, wherein I would have spoken about all of the events and spoken about the numbers, the data, right, from the epidemiology chart, right, that showed from March to April to May, all the way down to June, what was taking place. I talked about vaccination. I talked about the vaccination numbers, all of those things. But they would have picked what they picked. And I'm not going to lie, I did speak about the United National Congress. I didn't name the United National Congress. I merely said the opposition. And I talked about the ways in which behavior from the opposition here resembled behavior from the Republican Party in the United States. The ways in which they denied COVID, the ways in which they pretend that what happens here, is that what has happened here is not a real thing. The way in which something like this, let me see if I could find it again, boy.
Officials getting kudos for their handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The opposition leader says TNT has done well, but she did not give any credit to the government.
So those who say, that we've done very well in Trinidad, we took the right measures and so on, well, it means we did very well in the whole Caribbean, because all the islands in the Caribbean, and it has to be something with our climate, I believe, that might have been responsible.
Where a lie? Me a lie? That's what the woman say. The woman say that. The woman say that last year. In the height of the thing when the pandemic reached here. Wade Mark stand up in the people parliament and talk about opening up the rum shops because punching and lime is what will help people with COVID. During their general elections, mask wearing was not a thing. She has thus far refused to take the vaccine. And you are a political party that representing at least 300,000 voters in this country. So sorry, if the cap fits, the quenk will wear it. You all behaved in an ignorant, anti-scientific manner. And one of your MPs, who is a medical doctor, did recommend hydrochloroquine for use for COVID, even though all of the science telling you that hydrochloroquine can't help nothing, can't fix nothing. So, what I gotta tell you? So it goes. Maybe the BBC is at PNM. Or let's study that. The BBC might be at PNM. Party group what, boy? Party group number 0011. Winston and them. What Winston and them need to do is they need to grow up. Because things real rough with Winston and them, right? Here this last clip from Winston and them. I need all you to understand how rough things are for people like Winston and them right now. Because Winston is part of a wider clique of vloggers or whatever, right? Him, Philip, Suzette Lowe, and listen to his behavior this morning.
Suzette Lowe, who in a different country, trying to tell the country how it should be run. You all should not even pay much attention to these because you know why? Under the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, these are the same people who are never really sure whether they're going or coming, what is the real purpose of doing a video, what is the real intention to support the country. So
listen, Winston gets so riled up this morning and so lost the keys to his head that he went after Philip and Suzette Lowe in his live, So all I will say is this. Winston, when you want to jump out yourself, when you want to have an outer body experience and start to carry on about me, focus on me for the whole life. Me and me alone. Me particularly, I ain't keen on you focusing on me, period, because I find if an Indian man going and be focusing on me, at least be a little cute and thing now, have nice legs and thing now. No, alright? No. Right? Spruce up yourself a little bit. But since you can't spruce up yourself, when you're doing the live, do a live and be focused on me and me and me and me alone. Do a live and focus on Philip and Suzette, because I'm not in all your weight class, my boy. I'm not in all your weight class. This is not a situation where I anywhere near all your weight class. This championship league and only a small goal on a beach somewhere. Now I want to talk about this situation. So on Monday of this week, I forget to download the flyer. On either Monday or Tuesday of this week, there would have been notices put up from the various regional health authorities about the various health centers rolling out first come, first serve walk-in vaccines. And it turned out to be a massive fiasco. A massive fiasco because even though the flyers specifically said people over 60 and persons under 60 with non-communicable diseases like hypertension and diabetes and those kinds of things. So it made the criteria very clear. You had to, yes, Candice Bruce, you're absolutely right, vaccine zest. It was a whole zest that was taking place on Wednesday and partly again on Thursday. So flyers went out and the flyers told people very clearly, very specifically, first come, first serve. And maybe they should have put that lower down in the flyer because I feel first come, first serve turn everybody tutul bay and Toot Moon Bagay. Everybody, right? Toot Moon. Get up 5 o'clock Wednesday morning and went to the health center that was nearest to them. Even though all health centers is open 8. But I get it. You wanted to go to the health center to make sure you was the first person to get in to the health center to get the vaccine. Good. And it was like there was a closing down sale. Right? It was like everything had a go, right? So everybody went. And people went to these health centers to get the vaccines. And there was no observation of protocol. None whatsoever. So I want to start off by talking about this vaccine issue. To talk about responsibility. And the first thing I want to say is, individuals have a responsibility. We know since last year that the directions that we've been given is wash your hands, wear your mask, keep your distance. Once you're going out in public, once you have to enter into any spaces, wash your hands, wear your mask, keep your distance. Don't congregate, don't gather, and they certainly don't want more than a certain number of persons. I think, what is it now? 4 or 5 persons. If you have to be in public together, no more than 5 persons together, right? What I saw was disturbing. And I would have seen these things very early on in the morning. I mean, we see in the footage here. Not enough distancing taking place there at all. So I want to say that's the first bit of responsibility I want to talk about here. Our personal responsibility. Regardless of what the state does, regardless of what anybody, we have to remember at all points in time that we have to maintain distance if we want to keep ourselves protected where this virus, where this disease, where this pandemic is concerned, right? So if you're not doing that, you become part of the problem. But I also want to indicate that the state had a very, very critical role to play in this entire scenario. And the state needs, to own plenty of the shit that took place. But before we get into the amount of ownership for the shit that took place, let's look at this video. Let's look at this clip.
You all came for the vaccine as well? No. Right. Anybody here for the vaccine? Yeah. But the line is on this side, as you all can see. Thank you. All right? The line is on this side.
So you have clinic, right? Because all of these health centers just have clinic. You have clinic, you have vaccination. People show up and wherever, they're going in the clinic line, where they're not in the vaccine line, who in the vaccine line, close up under one another. This woman had a lot of patience. I think this is at the Diego Martin Health Facility. Let's listen to how she dealt with the situation.
As you all can see. Okay. About a certain amount of vaccine today. We will have more for tomorrow, but we cannot bombard the system today. Okay, I hope we can all understand this. We are going until 6 o'clock this evening, but unfortunately, going until 6 o'clock, we are only doing a certain amount with the limited staff that we have. I am out here to give out 100 numbers. 100. Anybody after that, I am kindly asking to return. Tomorrow, I wouldn't even suggest tomorrow.
Now, I saw a lot of footage, looked at a lot of footage, and there were a couple of things that I noted as well. Apart from the gathering, which should not have happened, it was clear to me that a lot of persons were under 60. And probably, I don't think that all of those persons who were under 60 had non-communicable diseases. So I think persons who did not fall into the category for the vaccine also showed up in large numbers, hoping to be able to get the vaccine. Now, what this tells me is that people interested in getting the vaccine, right? And that's a good thing, that people interested in getting the vaccine. Because for a while, because of Express and the foolishness, where they're putting up front page picture to frighten people. So Express, Guardian, Newsday, putting up stories, putting up big headlines to frighten people. There was a lot of low uptake of the vaccine when we had the rollout in April. Remember when I come here and I talk about people who was jumping line? And then I ask why the media is essential when all they're doing is sharing a set of misinformation and disinformation and bad news where vaccine where the vaccine is concerned. Right. We have gotten past that foolishness. I think now more and more people are seeing other persons getting vaccinated. They're feeling confident about the thing. They're also seeing what the infection rate and what the death rate looking like. And listen, Trinis and them could be against saying, basic death, they're afraid it bad. All right? So because they're seeing what the death numbers, what the death figures looking like, people decide, okay, we're going out. And then the Ministry of Health would have said vaccinate to operate. And we all know that once we get the majority of the population, more and more people vaccinated, and I'm not even talking about fully vaccinated, I'm talking about the first shot. Once we have more and more persons with the first shot, you could start to open back up the various sectors. People could go out. I could get doubles. I could get my hair done, right? My toes done. All kind of thing, right? I could go and buy clothes. All kind of thing could happen. So there is a huge demand for vaccine uptake. And I'm real happy about that. But we can't continue to behave as if vaccination of the population sneak up on we overnight. No, we just cannot continue to do that. Why? This pandemic here more than a year now. This pandemic here since March last year. We in June 2021. The government has known since late last year, because I remember when the Prime Minister get up in a press conference and talked about the planning of a vaccination rollout program. And they had hoped to start vaccinating people by January. But remember, vaccines weren't available for purchase. So we had to wait for vaccines to be donated to us for us to be able to vaccinate essential healthcare workers and other frontline workers. And then eventually vaccines would have come in from India after we had to deal up with Sahu and his madness. Then we got, then we started getting from the COVAX program. Then we got 100,000 from Sinopharm, and now we're in a position where vaccines are finally available for sale, so we buy in. Right? We buy AstraZeneca, we buy Sinopharm, and we buy in Johnson & Johnson. So we have hundreds of thousands of vaccines, and you all would have been here when the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Dr. Amory Brown, spoke on Wednesday night, and he talked about all of the negotiations that have been taking place for us to be able to purchase vaccine. I don't do my interviews and them ad hoc, right? I just want all you to understand how government working and how government progressing or not progressing. I just want all you to see, I just want all you to grasp how things are working together behind the scenes for certain things, for things to happen, for the country to operate. So when the country not operating the way it's supposed to operate, obviously are going to come here and talk about it as well. You see what has happened Wednesday and Thursday? That's embarrassing. And it's a whole logistics problem. And it's a whole logistics nightmare. And it's a logistics nightmare and a logistics problem because it can't be now that we know we have 1.1 million people at least to vaccinate. I was glad that the Minister of Health came out and took, he swallowed the thing whole. Right? He eat humble pie. He was big enough to come and say, okay, all right, I did wrong. I just think jumping, so don't jump yet. I want to let her hear the whole thing. And put it up so they could hear the whole thing.
To the nation for what has happened this morning. The Ministry of Health, of which I head, we underestimated the demand for vaccines, and we must sincerely apologize, and I, as Minister, sincerely apologize for this morning. But coming out of this apology, we must learn some lessons. And immediately this morning, we are going to institute the following measure to mitigate against this reoccurring from tomorrow. From tomorrow, Thursday the 10th, I believe, we will start an alphabetical system using surnames in groups of 5. So from tomorrow, over 60 alone, we are only going to be handling persons over 60 with surnames starting from A to E will get into our health centers. On Friday, we will do F to J, and then we will communicate with the public, so on and so on. So we'll be having a rolling alphabetical listing in groups of 5 letters, A to
Right. So, let's start from the beginning. The beginning is this. You have 1.1 million persons to vaccinate. You cannot write down all of them appointments in a copybook, right? You can't use a copybook for that. So this whole business of people calling in for appointment and it writing down somewhere, and then they show up for the appointment and they're not sure or they show up for the appointment and sometimes ain't get the vaccination, because that happened to friends of mine where they called, they got the appointment date, and when they show up for the vaccine, they were told you ain't gonna be able to get the vaccine today. And that's because even after they were assured that there were vaccines for them, people within the RHAs would have been doing their own thing with the appointment system, allowing other people to come in to get vaccines that were really and truly not allocated to them. And that's why I've been making noise about ensuring that who's supposed to get the vaccines, the various groups and phases that's supposed to get the vaccines, get the vaccine. So, the groups that are handling the vaccination rollout are the regional health authorities. I want you all to remember that. The RHAs are the ones that are doing the vaccine rollout. When I speak to people within the RHAs, they kick the ball back to the Ministry of Health. When I talk to persons within the Ministry of Health, they indicate to me that it's the RHAs that are responsible for the rollout in each of their the regions. And that right there is where the thing that start to turn all mass, because nobody wants to actually own or take ownership of the vaccination rollout program and the fact that it has not been working efficiently. Because you have people that are telling you they have been sending messages to the WhatsApp number. They've been calling the numbers. So they're calling, they're WhatsApping, and they're not getting a response. When you have people that are eager to get a vaccine, especially with what is taking place right now, you will have a situation where you are frustrating persons. And then what do they then tend to do? Because if the actual system not working for them, if the calling and the WhatsApping not getting them a response and not getting them an appointment, they start to look for ways to skip the line and jump the line. That is what begins to take place. So nobody responding, right? Or few persons are getting actual responses off the WhatsApp system. And because they are not getting responses off the WhatsApp system, they call in whoever they could call, pull whatever string they could pull to get themselves into vaccination centers, health centers, to get the vaccine. It is not that we can't handle mass vaccination, because we've had at the Queen's Park Savannah, at the Tacarigua Sports Center, and recently at the Diwali Nagar, we have had mass vaccination taking place. And let me tell you why, the logistical things that made it possible for it to happen. The TTMA would have set up a mass vaccination, and they would have told the various companies. So different companies know that there are different days that they have to show up. So people are clear on the day that they have to show up for vaccines. The nurses and the healthcare staff, they are clear on the numbers, because of course the companies will be able to put forward numbers. They'll be able to say, we have 100 employees, we have 200 employees, we have 350 employees. And once you add up all of the persons who have to come in to get their vaccines, the health workers know, well, all right, we need to have 790 vaccines available today, so that you don't take vaccines out that will waste. And once you know that you need to have a certain number of vaccines out on a daily basis, that's what you're moving with. And so persons show up, and the place big enough, the spaces that they have chosen for mass vaccination large enough, so you could come, you could park, you could sit or stand wherever and maintain your distance, and you roll through the process. You get your injection, you sit down for your 30 minutes where you need to sit down for your 30 minutes, and then you go back to your vehicle and leave, all without breaching the public health orders, all without being in a position where you are clustered and gathered and likely to cause any sort of spread or transmission of the virus. If we could do that at those large mass vaccination sites, it can be done at the health centers. But how it has to happen at the health centers is that everybody needs to have an appointment, or everybody needs to be clear on which day they can actually go and be guaranteed a vaccine. So you can't tell people first come, first serve once you're over 60 or once you're under 60 and have NCDs. Because if only those persons showed up, it would still be several hundred people showing up at the various vaccination centers. And I ain't talking about a couple hundred people in all. I'm talking about each of the centers, because we have a high rate of persons with diabetes and hypertension in this country that are under 60. And we also have a significantly aging population. So there are a number of over 60 persons who need to get vaccinated. And you can't have people picking up day in, day out, leaving their house 5 o'clock in the morning to go and line up in front of a health center, not certain if that day is the day that they will get a vaccine. So now you have to ask yourself, why has there not yet been a digital system for getting appointments? Because those of you that have cars, those of you that have vehicles, I'm sure all you know, you could go and book appointments on the licensing website. Because I renewed my driver's permit in January of this year, and it was remarkably, refreshingly easy. I went on to the website, I fill out my information, the thing come up with the date to pick, I pick a date, I pick a time, and boom shot, I go on in St. James licensing, and in what? An hour's time or so much, everything gets sorted out, and I was back in my vehicle with my driver's permit. Right? And because, I mean, and as seamless and easy as the system was, I still tell them I want a 10-year permit. Right? I tell them, give me a permit for 10 years. So licensing has a system that will be covering all of the persons who have vehicles in this country. And we know that we have, more than 1 million vehicles on the road and about 600,000 vehicle owners. So that is a website, a web portal that has to deal up with 600,000 persons accessing it to be able to do things. Minimum, right? Because it's vehicle owners who getting on there. What you're basically telling me is Ministry of Health needed to get a portal, right, for a digital appointment system that would allow, give or take, about 1.1 million persons to access it. We have the time to build this. We have the time to build this. It's since late last year, all you need to do this. So then, of course, I asked a question the other day. Why it taking so long for the Ministry of Digital Transformation, Public Admin and Digital Transformation, to present to the country a digital solution for appointments? And that post yesterday caused a setter bangarang and kankatang, because people were so upset that I put that up as a status yesterday. But here's what I found out. In the course of the thing, a couple friends of mine who work inside that ministry reached out and they gave me some information. And it's information that has me wondering what really and truly is the role of public servants. So an e-appointment system was actually established, right? So the Ministry of Public Administration and Digital Transformation actually implemented or started or launched an appointment system. And then the appointment system was, how to say? Do I say it was cancelled? I should just say it was shut down. So the client would have asked for an appointment system. The appointment system was designed and it was set up. And then it was shut down. After the fiasco that took place this week, they decided to relaunch it. So it's going to be relaunched, right? They're going to bring back up the digital appointment system. But you had to ask yourself, you had to pause and ask yourself, who were the public servants that made the decision to shut down the digital appointment system? Why did you decide to shut down a digital appointment system and instead have everybody using this WhatsApp system that was not working properly? I don't know yet. Nobody has said to me yet. Nobody has explained it to me yet. Who are the public servants that made this decision? What I am clear on is the way in which the rollout has taken place, and the way in which the rollout has taken place at the level of the RHAs has been mishandled, and mishandled badly, because people who trying to get appointments can't get appointments. And that's what I mean. What I mean to say is people who qualify to get appointments can't get appointments. People who not qualified to get appointments but have the contacts and the people on the inside in the RHAs were able to get appointments. A digital system does away with that level of corruption. Because if you set up a digital system for vaccine appointments, then only the person who has logged in to book and set up for the appointment can book the appointment. The minute you have a system, give me a second, my throat is parched. The minute you have an appointment system that being handled by people manually, thing could get shipped around. Thing could move and thing could not work properly, and things could get very, very corrupt very, very quickly. So when you have a digital system, you could filter out all of that interference or plenty of that interference and put in place something that everybody ought to be in a position to have access to without needing to have somebody on the inside. Somebody who could give me a bly. Somebody who could give me an N. So what has to happen now is we need to move past that fiasco that took place on Wednesday. I don't think the alphabetical order thing will work either. All you know how much people with the last name Ali in this country? All you know how much people with the last name Bernard? All you know how much people with the last name Brong in this country? All you know how much people with the last name Edwards and Peters and Williams and Muhammad and Rampasad and Singh? Hiena, listen to me. That alphabet system not going to make sense. And let me tell you why the alphabet system not going to make sense. You do not have an even spread of persons with the same last names across the country. By that, I mean, you have the Northwest Regional Health Authority, the North Central Regional Health Authority, the Eastern Regional Health Authority, the Southwest Regional Health Authority, right? Let me just go with Trinidad, them 4 regional authorities in Trinidad. You do not have the same number of persons with the last name Ali, or the same number of persons with the last name Barrett, or the same number of persons with the last name John across the various regional health. So when you say today we go in with A to E, what if one regional health authority managed to finish A to E today, but the others ain't finish A to E because they're still on A or they're still on B? What happens? Because if you come in and then saying Thursday is A to E, Friday is F to whatever, all you know me, I can't even count to tell you how many other letters it is. What is going to happen there? That's crazy. That is entirely crazy. So you needed to have a database, a portal that would allow people to click on a link and end up somewhere where they're choosing a date, they're choosing a health center, they're choosing a time, right? And once it's available, boom shot, you have an appointment. And depending on which vaccine you take, whether it's AstraZeneca or Sinopharm, you automatically have the date that is what 6 weeks down the line from that or 3 weeks down the line from that as your return date for your second shot. That's what needed to take place. It was a logistics thing. The number of people, the size of venue, the date. That's what you needed to sort out. And if you were going to be doing mass vaccination, then you could have larger numbers at the mass vaccination sites. If you're using the health centers, which are much smaller, and this is the other thing, our health centers here are small, so you can't have hundreds of people showing up at the health center to get vaccinated. It's just not going to work. Just not going to work. You cannot have that nonsense taking place at all. And because we didn't factor in how eager people would be to get the vaccine, because Trini's afraid to dead bad, it didn't occur to us that it was going to be a situation where we say first come, first serve, and Tooth Moon show up. So there is a fair amount of responsibility on both ends. The ministry needed to think this thing out and implement a proper appointment system so that there would be no anxiety for persons about whether or not they're going to get the vaccine. And we need to understand, not because the first line say first come, first serve, we had to show up. If the rest of the thing saying you had to be over 60, or if you're under 60, you had to have non-communicable diseases, then only show up if that's the case. And then when you reach the venue, if you see 3,000 people, you ain't had to be 3,000 first. You could head home. Right? You could head home. Because that ain't making no sense. It just ain't making no sense. But to wrap up, I will say this. One of the things that has me feeling hopeful is that we now have more than 150,000 persons with their first shot, and we now have about 9,500 persons that are fully vaccinated. Every single day, the numbers are going up, and they're going up significantly. So I'm happy to see that we're having more and more persons that are vaccinated. and that more and more persons that would have been hesitant about getting the vaccines, they now want to get the vaccines. So that's a positive. Tomorrow's press conference, I'm sure, is going to be lit, because I'm expecting that plenty people going to want to come out and ask. When I say plenty people, you know what I mean? The reporters and I'm going to come out and jam the government. And it's their right. Come out, ask the harsh questions. And ask the hard questions and get a response. And we need to get a response on this. We need to know, when is this digital appointment system going to be launched, fully launched, properly launched. So that's me wrapping up here for this evening. On Sunday, I think I'm going to be featuring, I'm going to talk about this guy a little bit on Sunday. Who else am I going to talk about on Sunday? I can tell you. Him. And there are one or two others. I ain't have the images here. But definitely I want to talk about some of these persons that position themselves as experts, messiahs. They have all the answers. Because these days I see Diane from Diane's Tea Shop positioning herself in a very political way. Then Peter George jump out himself and basically say that the government should borrow $6 billion to give to people but stop collecting taxes, which made absolutely no sense with me, because it's kind of like, if the government not collecting revenue, how are they going to be in a position to borrow to give? So Sunday, I have a couple very interesting things that I wanted to discuss about some of these saviors and messiahs that keep jumping up, right? Putting themselves forward as the people that have the solution to everything. Anyhow, y'all have yourselves a good Friday evening. Lupin, for those of you that are on Netflix, the series Lupin is back with season 2, and I am going to sit down and have myself a relaxing glass of sangria and take in the second season of Lupin. Enjoy yourself. And remember, float, don't toot.